$2 million, dead or alive. That's the price on one woman the underground calls Wisp. No photograph, no trail, just a sniper so precise that entire armies whisper her name. Overnight, the world's deadliest generals have put a target on her back, unleashing mercenaries, drones, and secret agencies to smoke her out. But what they don't know is that every move they make only feeds her scope. In the next few minutes, you'll see why she became the most hunted and the most unstoppable sniper alive. This is a simple woman. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and prepare yourself, because the hunt has already begun. The bounty wasn't whispered. It detonated across the dark web like a thunderclap. $2 million. Pooled by men whose names usually never appeared together. General Richard Stroud, the American logistics mastermind who traded troop routes like poker chips. General Farid Nasser, warlord turned self-proclaimed savior of his people. And Viktor Lysenko, the mercenary baron whose empire stretched from the Black Sea to the Baltic. 3 men who distrusted everyone but greed. And now they had united on a single line: bring back Wisp, dead or alive. In a candle-lit bunker in Prague, a hacker stared at the wallet address scrolling across his terminal. The funds were real, loaded in cryptocurrency that had been laundered through 17 layers of shell accounts. Bounty boards lit up from Bogota to Bangkok. Men who had never set foot in the same hemisphere now shared the same dream: hunt the ghost sniper, Wisp. But Kara Vale, known to the underground only as Wisp, wasn't running. She was watching. On a rooftop cafe in Warsaw, she sipped black coffee, her eyes hidden behind scratched aviators. Her laptop hummed quietly, an unremarkable machine designed to melt its own drives if touched by anyone else. On the screen glowed the very bounty announcement that rattled mercenaries worldwide. What no one knew, not Stroud, not Nasser, not Lysenko, was that Kara had been the first to seed that wallet months ago. A few $1,000s only, slipped through disposable accounts, enough to bait the sharks. The generals believed they'd built the snare. But Kara Vale had laid the trail. She had forced them to step into the open, to sign their names to their greed. And now she had 3 signatures locked in her sights. Her reflection flickered in the cafe window. Cropped dark hair, lean shoulders under a faded jacket. A woman whose face no one remembered twice. To the outside world, she was a rumor, a contract, a file marked "Eliminate on sight." To herself, she was a soldier without a flag. Once she had worn the uniform, sworn the oath, trusted the system. Once she had a mentor, Colonel Elena Rourke, who called her the best shot of her generation. That was before the day her trigger pull killed the wrong man, before falsified intel turned her into the perfect scapegoat. The system had branded her expendable, so Kara stopped being part of the system. She rewrote her creed into something harsher, simpler. Betrayal demands retribution. The generals thought the bounty would smoke her out. What it had really done was hand her their playbook, locations, travel habits, even their paranoia. They had marked themselves with the ink of their own corruption. Kara folded the laptop shut, slid a few coins under her cup, and stood. Around her, the city buzzed with ordinary noise, trams screeching, street vendors arguing, a child laughing somewhere beyond the cafe doors. All of it distant, muted. For Kara Vale, there was only the echo of 3 names, and the weight of a rifle case hidden in a plain grey duffel. The hunt had begun, yes, but not the way they imagined. For every mercenary chasing her shadow, she was already 3 moves ahead, drawing invisible lines that led only one way, through Stroud, Nasser, and Lysenko. And if the world wanted proof that hunting Wisp was suicide, she would carve that message in gunfire across continents. 5 years earlier, Kara Vale wasn't a shadow in the crosshairs. She was a decorated captain in the 5th Special Operations Group, a woman whose name appeared on after-action reports with words like precision unmatched and commendation pending. Her file glittered with silver stars, but what mattered more was the quiet respect she earned from her unit. They called her Steady Hands. She didn't flinch when others doubted the shot, and the one person who believed in her more than anyone was Colonel Elena Rourke. Rourke had plucked Kara from the sharpshooter program and forged her into a professional marksman who could thread a bullet through glass, dust, and a hurricane of static. For Kara, Rourke was more than a commander. She was mentor, guardian, and, though neither admitted it, family. The fracture began with one assignment that was supposed to be routine. A high-value insurgent coordinator had been verified through multiple channels. Kara studied the man's movements, checked the intel twice over. At 1,300 meters, she adjusted for crosswind temperature, even the Coriolis drift. One steady breath, one squeeze. The target dropped without a sound. But hours later, the aftershock rippled. The insurgent wasn't insurgent at all. He was an embedded American agent, sent deep undercover to dismantle the very network Kara was told to destroy. His cover had been perfect, until her bullet tore through it. Kara remembered the sterile courtroom lights, the endless drone of the prosecution. She remembered Rourke's eyes, cold but not cruel, as if she'd been forced into a role she didn't want to play. The board offered Kara two paths: accept the dishonor, disappear quietly into civilian life, or fight to court-martial and face decades in prison for killing a fellow operative. Both were cages, painted different colors. For a long moment, Kara had waited for Rourke to intervene, to tell the truth, to reveal that someone had doctored the intel packet. But Rourke stayed silent, her lips pressed into a line that said, "Survive first, fight later." That silence burned deeper than any sentence could have. In Kara's mind, it was betrayal, not of orders, but of trust. If her mentor wouldn't stand for her, who would? She vanished before judgment could fall. Within months, the officers who had approved the falsified intel began turning up dead. Single shots, impossible ranges, crime scenes cleaned so thoroughly they might as well have been ghost stories. The message was unmistakable. Kara Vale wasn't waiting for redemption. She was writing her own verdict. Yet in the quiet hours, when she stripped her rifle and cleaned every bolt and spring, she would hear Rourke's voice in memory. "You are more than the system. Don't let them make you less." And the cruelest irony was that Kara still believed it. Even while carving a trail of bodies through the betrayal, some part of her still longed for the woman who once called her Steady Hands. Now, years later, the bounty had dragged that fracture back into the light. 3 generals had painted her as prey. But the ghost of Colonel Elena Rourke lingered at the edge of Kara's scope, a question with no answer. Was her mentor complicit in the lie, or simply another pawn swallowed by the machine? General Richard Stroud had built his fortress like he built his career, layer upon layer of concrete and deniability. Perched high in the Carpathian ridges, his operations base resembled a military monastery. Glass walkways threading between armored bunkers, satellite dishes blinking against the cold sky. He believed the altitude made him untouchable. It only made him easier to see. Before dawn, Kara Vale lay prone against the spine of a cliff, her duffel unzipped, Barrett M107A1 braced on bipod legs. Distance to target, 2,417 meters. A shot few living snipers would even attempt. She'd spent 3 nights crawling the shale, mapping the valley's crosswinds, logging the temperature drops, rehearsing the exhale that would ride her bullet across the void. Stroud stepped into her scope at 8:46, flanked by aides, crossing the glass bridge to his command post. Kara slowed her breathing, checked the reticle, adjusted 2 clicks for wind shear. This was the kind of shot that wrote legends. She squeezed. The thunder of the 50-round cracked against the mountainside. The bullet streaked, then drifted. Kara's eyes widened as the round chipped harmlessly into the reinforced railing. Stroud paused mid-stride, glancing down at the sudden spark. Guards snapped to attention, rifles sweeping. Kara's mind raced. The calculations were flawless. Why had the shot veered? Then, in her earpiece, a soft pulse, ping-ping, a rhythm she hadn't authorized. She flicked open the weather station clamped beside her rifle. The device was transmitting, its beacon hijacked into a locator, a kill switch. Someone had seeded her gear with a live beacon, turning her nest into a signal flare. Adrenaline spiked. She had seconds before counter-battery radar painted her location. Kara yanked the beacon free, hurled it down the scree. Already the hiss of mortars began echoing up the valley. But Stroud was still on that bridge, half believing the spark had been some electrical fault. She rolled back, recalibrated by hand. No weather data, just instinct. Adjust 1 mil up, half left. The aides barked into radios. Stroud barked louder, impatience written in his shoulders. Kara exhaled slow, heart drumming against her ribs, and squeezed again. This time the round sang true. 2.5 kilometers away, Richard Stroud folded mid-stride, the impact blasting him off his glass runway like a marionette whose strings had been cut. His aides screamed, security converged, alarms howled, but Kara was already moving. She broke down her rifle with surgeon's speed, stuffed it into the duffel, and descended the shale like a shadow. Mortars rained the cliffside she'd abandoned seconds earlier. In the confusion, her tossed kill switch beacon still pulsed, tricking radar into hammering the wrong spot. By the time Stroud's body was zipped into a bag, Kara was 5 kilometers south, hitching onto the undercarriage of a logging truck rolling down the mountain. To the world, the death of General Richard Stroud was a shock. To the mercenary networks, it was proof. Wisp wasn't prey, she was the storm. Yet as the news broke, deepfake clips began to surface, a woman's silhouette in crosshairs, firing into a crowd of civilians. The caption screamed, "Ghost sniper slaughters innocents." The timing was too perfect, too orchestrated. Kara knew the kill switch hadn't been Stroud's doing. Someone else had turned her first strike into bait for a bigger hunt. In the cab of the truck, she checked her watch, listening to the faint ringing in her ear where the hijacked beacon had pulsed. One thought gnawed at her harder than Stroud's collapse. If someone had tampered with her kit, it meant a hand close enough to touch her gear. A ghost hunting the ghost. And as the convoy vanished into the forest roads, Kara Vale whispered to herself, steady but grim, "Round one's over. Now let's see who's really pulling the trigger." By nightfall, the headlines were louder than the gunshot that felled Stroud. Not "Corrupt General Executed," or "Sniper Pierces Fortress at Impossible Range." No, the feeds were plastered with shaky footage of civilians collapsing under sniper fire, spliced together with grainy overlays of a dark-haired woman in tactical gear. Ghost kills innocents in Bucharest. Wisp turns her scope on the people. It was a fabrication, obvious to any trained eye. The shadows didn't match. The muzzle flash was from a different caliber. Even the audio track looped the same scream twice. But to the public, panic didn't wait for forensic truth. The image was enough. In a command center 2,000 miles away, Colonel Elena Rourke stood before a bank of screens. Her voice was measured, but the steel in it cut deeper than the static-laden footage. "Gentlemen, this is no longer about one assassin. This is about global stability. Wisp has crossed the line from combatant to war criminal. I am authorizing full-spectrum pursuit. Capture is optional. Termination is primary." A murmur rippled across the Joint Task Force room. Some officers exchanged wary glances. One man, Field Investigator Jonah Pierce, leaned forward, his jaw tight. "With respect, Colonel," Jonah said, "those clips are doctored. Satellite confirms no civilian casualties in Bucharest yesterday. If we move on false evidence, we'll bury ourselves in the same corruption that created Wisp in the first place." Rourke's eyes flicked toward him, colder than the glow of the monitors. "You want to play lawyer, Pierce? Do it on your own time. Right now the world needs a villain, and the world needs us to end her." Outside those walls, mercenary networks exploded with confidence. The deepfake clips gave them moral cover, even righteous justification. Bars buzzed with men bragging they'd be the one to put Wisp's head on a spike. Contracts multiplied, drone fleets rerouted, borders stiffened, and in a decaying apartment in Bratislava, Kara Vale watched the feeds unspool across her encrypted tablet. Her jaw clenched at the audacity. The edited footage even used her old training profile stolen from a military archive she once trusted. The message wasn't just to the world, it was to her. We own your face now, we own your legend. But panic was not in her vocabulary. She exhaled, steadying her hands as she rewired a transceiver. If they wanted propaganda, she would answer with precision. She cut into a live radio net where a NATO unit prepared to breach a suspected hideout, civilians clustered unknowingly in the street outside. Her voice came through their headsets, flat and calm. Alpha Team, check your sector. Heat signatures show non-combatants at entry. Withdraw now or you're firing into families. A beat of silence, then confusion, questions, but the thermal data, spliced in by Kara's hack, flashed undeniable. Seconds later, the order came: abort, fall back. Somewhere on the net, Kara imagined Rourke listening, teeth grinding. Wisp had just hijacked the narrative. The deepfake showed a butcher, but the reality showed a ghost saving civilians from a false raid. Kara powered down, her reflection faint in the cracked laptop screen. The war wasn't on the ridgeline anymore, it was in the bloodstream of truth itself. And she knew with a cold certainty that Rourke wasn't just chasing her, Rourke was using her. The deepfake was a leash, and if Kara didn't cut it soon, the world would never again believe in what her rifle was truly aimed at. General Farid Nasser didn't hide in luxury, he buried himself in concrete. His headquarters was an underground citadel carved beneath the hills of a disputed border zone. Layers of steel doors, biometric locks and rotating guard patrols made it seem impregnable. Yet the most effective shield he wielded wasn't metal. It was innocence. Directly above his main bunker sat a children's refuge, a weathered 3-story shelter run by foreign aid groups, home to nearly 50 displaced kids. To the outside world it looked accidental, a quirk of zoning. But Kara Vale knew better. Nasser had deliberately chosen that location, threading his ventilation ducts through the foundation of the shelter. If anyone tried to breach him with bombs or gas, the first to choke would be the children. Kara studied the schematics she'd stolen months before, tracing the ducts with her fingertip under the dim light of a candle. Every fiber of her training screamed efficiency, take the shot, eliminate the target, but every beat of her conscience warned otherwise. If she miscalculated even by inches, the price would be more than Nasser's blood. It would be a massacre of the very lives he had exploited. At 14:25, Nasser's schedule ticked into place. Every day, without fail, he entered his command chamber to place encrypted calls with foreign financiers. Kara's earpiece hummed softly with audio siphoned from contact mics she'd slipped onto the ventilation casing days earlier. She heard his voice echo through the ductwork, booming with arrogance, dictating supply routes, weapon shipments, threats against villages that dared resist him. Her plan was dangerous, unorthodox, but it was the only way. Instead of high-caliber penetration, Kara had crafted a compact dispersal charge, no larger than a soda canister. Packed with aerosolized sedative compounds, calibrated to incapacitate within a 3-meter radius, it was designed not to kill, but to create a window. She positioned herself near the intake vent 200 meters from the shelter, the children's laughter faint above ground haunting her every motion. Slipping the device into the duct, she activated a micro-drone to guide it through the labyrinth of pipes. The drone's camera flickered across tight corners, each turn a potential snag. Kara's breath stayed shallow, her finger tense on the remote trigger. At 14:30 sharp, Nasser's voice rose, angry now, berating a subordinate. The drone hovered above the grating that opened into his chamber. Kara whispered under her breath, "For the kids." She triggered the dispersal. A muffled hiss vibrated through the pipe. Seconds later, the audio feed shifted, chairs scraping, shouts cut short, a cough that broke into silence. The sedative clouded the room like an invisible tide. Guards stumbled, Nasser's voice slurred mid-sentence, then collapsed into stillness. Kara didn't celebrate. She slid the secondary device, this one lethal, down the shaft, timed to detonate directly beside Nasser's chair. The explosion was contained, calculated, a thunderclap that shook the chamber but left the ducts intact. In the shelter above, children kept laughing, oblivious, while 2 stories beneath their feet, the man who had turned their lives into bargaining chips was reduced to ash. By the time security stormed the chamber, Kara was already gone, melting into the hills with nothing left behind but questions. How had the ghost bypassed an impregnable fortress without shedding innocent blood? News broke within hours. Second general dead. Nasser eliminated in his own bunker. Analysts debated the method, some claiming drones, others insider sabotage. But the truth, Kara's truth, wasn't for them. It was for her alone, the knowledge that she had walked the razor edge between justice and slaughter and chosen restraint without losing efficiency. Yet as she trekked across the border, under the cover of night, the doubt gnawed at her. For all her precision, she was still playing a game scripted by others. Someone had tampered with her gear at Stroud's, someone had manufactured deepfakes to make her a villain. And now, with Nasser's death, she could feel the net tightening. The bounty was no longer just bait for mercenaries, it was a chessboard, and she was being moved like a piece. The night after Nasser's fortress went silent, Kara Vale set up camp in the skeleton of an abandoned rail yard. Rusted tracks glimmered under moonlight, freight cars gutted and forgotten, a graveyard for machines. She cleaned her rifle by touch, every spring and pin returning to their place. But when she reached for her handheld anemometer, the same weather gauge that had betrayed her outside Stroud's compound, something caught her eye, a hairline seam along the casing. Barely visible but fresh, she pried it open with the tip of a knife. Inside, beneath the circuit board, a wafer-thin chip blinked once before dying. Not a transmitter she recognized, more advanced. A hybrid beacon capable of feeding position data in bursts short enough to mask as background noise. Her pulse tightened. Someone had touched her gear. Not just touched, handled it long enough to implant tech invisible to routine checks. The kill switch wasn't sabotage from afar. It had been slipped in by a hand close enough to her life that she hadn't noticed. Kara's instincts screamed for answers. She tore apart the rest of her kit. Optics, rangefinder, comm rig. In the lining of her pack she found another microchip, this one fused with a motion sensor. She crushed it under her boot, jaw tightening. Someone wasn't just hunting the ghost. Someone was mapping her every move. That was when the sound came. A single footstep, deliberate, echoing down the hollow corridor of the freight yard. Then another, softer, pacing with the rhythm of someone unafraid to be heard. From the shadows emerged a figure in a hooded jacket, movements fluid, almost feline. A woman, lean and poised, eyes glinting in the half-light like a predator at rest. She carried no visible weapon, yet every line of her posture radiated danger. "Kara Vale," she said, her voice low, threaded with amusement. "Or do you prefer Wisp? You've been sloppy. Twice now." Kara's rifle was already half-raised, sights on the intruder's chest. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head, a smirk curving. "They call me Moth, because I like fire. And you, darling, burn brighter than any flame I've ever seen." Kara kept her scope steady. "You planted the chips." Moth shrugged. "I tested your awareness. You passed, eventually." She stepped closer, fearless. "But the people funding this bounty? They're not after justice, they're after leverage. And you're obliging them with every bullet you fire." The words slid under Kara's skin. Moth wasn't gloating, she was studying, dissecting. The way her eyes tracked every muscle twitch felt less like an enemy's glare and more like a mirror held up to Kara's own methods. "You had a shot," Kara said coldly. "Why are you talking?" "Because I'm not here to kill you," Moth replied, lips curling into something between a grin and a warning. "I'm here to see what you'll do when you realize the real bounty isn't on your head, it's in your hands." Before Kara could reply, a flare burst overhead, white light flooding the rail yard. By the time her eyes adjusted, Moth was gone, swallowed by shadow as if she'd never been there at all. Kara stood alone amid the wreckage, rifle steady, but her heart pounding with a new realization. The game was bigger, the pieces more numerous, and someone clever enough to slip past her defenses, was moving on the same board. Viktor Lysenko didn't believe in bunkers or borders. His kingdom floated. The Aurora, a gleaming white superyacht longer than a football field, bristled with radar domes, sonar nets, and an anti-drone canopy stretched like a silver web over its decks. To the world it was luxury incarnate. To Lysenko it was a moving fortress. He boasted that no sniper could ever reach him here, no bullet could travel across international waters and land in his private suite. Kara Vale knew he was right. That was why she didn't bring a rifle. From a rocky inlet 12 kilometers away, she knelt beside a portable array disguised as salvage equipment. Antennas sprouted like insect wings, tied into a spool of custom code running off a rugged laptop. Kara wasn't here to shoot, she was here to blind. For weeks, she had mapped the Aurora's electronic signature, every frequency, every encrypted handshake, every lazy heartbeat of its engines. Now she injected noise, a phantom fleet of radar echoes rising from the water like ghost ships. Screens aboard the yacht bloomed with false contacts. Submarines where none existed, helicopters hovering just beyond the horizon, an entire swarm of invisible threats. The crew scrambled, rushing to battle stations, leaving their master half-isolated. Lysenko, pacing in his Faraday-shielded command suite, barked orders through radios that crackled with Kara's static. For the first time, his fortress felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. At 8:47, a vent valve on the Aurora's starboard side hissed open, an automatic safety response Kara had triggered with her false signals. Exhaust vented straight into the sea breeze, carrying traces of carbon dioxide far heavier than usual. It was a lure, and Kara knew Lysenko would take it. Sure enough, cameras patched into her drone feed showed him storming down from the suite, flanked by guards, demanding to see the engines himself. The man who sold fear across continents was now choking on his own paranoia. Kara prepared the final stroke. A directional charge, small but precise, buried in a buoy she'd released hours earlier, floated innocently near the yacht's maintenance lane. Detonated at the right moment, it wouldn't sink the vessel, but it would knock power out, plunging the ship into darkness for exactly 90 seconds. Enough time for panic, enough time for a shot without a bullet. Her finger hovered over the trigger, then froze. Across her encrypted channel, a familiar voice cut through the static. "This is Colonel Elena Rourke. All strike teams, prepare for boarding. Primary objective, seize the Ghost." Kara's stomach dropped. She scanned the drone feed again. Fast boats, low silhouette, were slicing toward the Aurora. Armed men in tactical black carried NATO insignia, but their orders were clear, not to capture Lysenko but to corner Kara. She realized the trap too late. Every echo she'd created, every phantom contact she'd fed into the yacht's systems hadn't just lured Lysenko into the open, it had broadcast her digital fingerprints. And Rourke had been listening the entire time. Through the drone's thermal lens, Kara saw Lysenko halt on deck, shouting, pointing at the approaching boats. His guards raised rifles, confusion mixing with fear. And above them all a helicopter thundered low, its door gun swiveling. In the open door stood Rourke herself, headset clamped, eyes like iron. Kara clenched her jaw. The board was collapsing, pieces colliding. She could kill Lysenko now, detonate the buoy and end his empire. Or she could use him, expose the truth Rourke was burying under the mask of command. The laptop screen blinked red, her window was closing. 90 seconds of blackout or nothing. Kara's hand pressed the trigger. The buoy erupted in a plume of spray, shockwaves hammering the yacht's hull. Lights across the Aurora died, alarms shrieked, and chaos consumed the decks. In the midst of it, Viktor Lysenko stumbled into a side chamber, exactly where Kara had mapped his path. But before she could savor the move, her comms filled with Rourke's final command. "Ghost is on the grid. Close the trap. Do not let her leave alive." Kara Vale exhaled. The generals had been her mission. But now it was clear. The real hunter wasn't them. It was the woman who once called her steady hands. The Aurora was a carcass of flashing red lights and panicked shouts. Power gone, comms scrambled. Its steel belly trembled like a leviathan bleeding in the water. Kara Vale's drones circled silently overhead, feeding her a fractured view, guards running blind through corridors, Lysenko pounding on sealed doors, and Rourke's strike teams swarming the decks with ruthless precision. Through her scope feed, Kara tracked Lysenko staggering into the auxiliary control room, desperate to reboot systems. His hands shook as he tried to punch in codes. The warlord who once auctioned armies now looked like a man about to drown in his own fortress. Then the side door burst open. Colonel Elena Rourke entered, flanked by operators in matte black armor. She didn't point her rifle at Lysenko, she pointed it at the server racks. "Wipe them," she ordered, calm and final. "Everything that ties this ship to the contracts. Burn the evidence." Lysenko spun, furious. "You can't. These files are leverage, my insurance." "You were leverage," Rourke replied. Her tone was almost surgical. "Now you're liability." Kara's breath caught. It wasn't just a bounty, it was housekeeping. Rourke had weaponized her, used Kara's kills to clear the board of obsolete players, leaving clean space for a new empire of mercenaries under her control. From her vantage point, Kara could end it now. One suppressed round through the porthole would erase Lysenko. But something colder than revenge kept her finger steady. She needed proof, not another corpse. Then, a flicker across the feed. A shadow moved behind the operators, silent as smoke. One by one, their comm lines fizzled. A knife whispered through the dark, slicing wires, cutting straps. And then a voice, soft and mocking. "Careful, Colonel. Fire draws moths." Moth stepped into view, her hood pushed back, eyes glinting with mischief. She wasn't there for Kara. She was there to expose the entire charade. With a flick of her wrist, she projected data across the control room wall, transaction logs, crypto wallets, and the very bounty account that had seeded the 2 million prize. Lysenko's jaw dropped. The first deposits weren't from him, nor from Nasser or Stroud. They were from a shell account tied back to Kara herself. Rourke's expression hardened, but her eyes betrayed recognition. She knew Kara had laid the bait months ago. The ghost had started this game, but Rourke had hijacked it. "This was never about your head," Moth whispered, her smile sharp. "It was about your hands, the perfect blade, forged by betrayal, sharp enough to cut down kings. And she," Moth tilted her head toward Rourke, "was the one guiding where you struck." Kara's chest tightened. Betrayal had brought her here once before. Now it stood in front of her in flesh and blood, the mentor who had once promised, "You are more than the system." Rourke leveled her pistol at Lysenko, finger curling on the trigger. "The system needs new order, and I will build it." Through her drone mic, Kara spoke aloud, voice steady, filling the chamber like a ghost in the machine. "No, Elena. The system needs to burn." Chaos erupted. Operators turned, Moth vanished into smoke, and Rourke's pistol barked. In the crack of that gunshot, the past and present collided. Kara knew this wasn't just about generals anymore. It was about the woman who had made her, and now meant to end her. The firefight inside the Aurora's control room ended as suddenly as it began. Lysenko was dragged from the chamber, battered but alive, his empire collapsing beneath him. The operators sealed the doors, and for a brief moment, only the glow of Moth's projection remained on the wall. Rows of encrypted transactions, dates, and digital signatures. Kara crouched over her terminal on the distant shore, her chest tight as she traced the trail. The first deposits, the seed money that had legitimized the bounty, weren't from generals, they were from her. Small transfers disguised as fractured donations, each routed through throwaway wallets she had burned long ago. She remembered them vividly, now a handful of coins she had slipped into the void, meant to bait the powerful into stepping out of the shadows. The truth struck like recoil. She had written her own death warrant. She had invited Stroud, Nasser and Lysenko into the open by dangling the one lure they couldn't resist, her head. But Rourke had seen the bait too. And instead of warning Kara, instead of tearing down the lie, she had ridden it, commandeering the trap for her own design. Every shot Kara fired, every fortress she breached, every corpse she left behind, they had all cleared Rourke's board of obsolete allies. Moth's voice drifted through the comm static, playful and cruel. "Brilliant, isn't it? You thought you set the hook, Ghost, but someone else reeled the line." Kara's hands clenched on the keyboard. Images of Stroud collapsing, Nasser choking in his bunker, Lysenko cowering in panic, all of them burned in her memory. Each one had deserved the bullet, but each one had also been a pawn struck down not just by her justice, but by Rourke's calculus. Inside the chamber, Rourke's voice cut through the noise, sharp as the report of a rifle. "You were always the perfect weapon, Kara. I told the tribunal to bury you, not because I believed the lie, but because I needed you free, unbound, outside the law. Only then could you do what the system would never sanction." The words hollowed Kara's chest. Betrayal twisted into something worse, manipulation. Rourke hadn't abandoned her. She had unleashed her. "And now look," Rourke continued, gesturing at Lysenko on his knees. "3 tyrants erased in 2 weeks. Networks crumbling, power redistributed. You've done more for stability than 1,000 diplomats. And they'll never even know your name." Kara's voice bled through the drone feed, low and cold. "You don't get to use me." Rourke almost smiled. "You already did. You lit the fire. I only kept it burning." The yacht groaned under the strain of its failing systems, alarms wailing like the cries of a dying beast. Moth flickered back into the frame, her holographic display scrolling faster, exposing deeper layers, not just Kara's seed wallets, but the way Rourke had funneled millions into them afterward, laundering the bounty into a legitimate global hunt. "You see," Moth whispered, "2 ghosts weaving the same snare, but only one of you knew you were the bait." Kara's breath steadied. The recoil of truth hurt worse than any bullet. She had created the storm, but Rourke had steered it. She had become the blade that carved her mentor's empire, a weapon too precise to resist. On the Aurora, chaos raged, but the real battle was already decided. Rourke hadn't just hunted her, she had written Kara's legend into the architecture of control. And for the first time since she'd disappeared from the system, Kara Vale felt the weight of chains again. Not iron, not law, but betrayal refined into purpose. The Aurora lay crippled, drifting without power, its lights guttering like candles in a storm. Operators scrambled, Lysenko wailed, and Rourke barked orders into dead comms. But none of it mattered, because across encrypted channels worldwide, a different voice had just gone live. Kara Vale's. Her broadcast was cold, clinical, and undeniable. Screens from Moscow to Langley lit with the same file packet, photographs of Stroud's corpse on the glass bridge, seismic readouts of Nasser's bunker blast, schematics of the Aurora's blackout, even timestamps of her weapon setups. Every page stamped with one word in red, Ghost. Alongside the evidence came the ledger, wallet addresses, transfers and signatures exposing the true architects of the bounty. Stroud, Nasser, Lysenko, and the shadow funding that had flowed through Colonel Elena Rourke's accounts. The message was simple. The bounty has been collected, $2 million rendered in full, 3 targets eliminated as contracted. Any further action constitutes breach of agreement. Breaches will be punished. It wasn't vengeance. It read like a receipt, a transaction complete. The Ghost had turned the world's most chaotic manhunt into paperwork filed, stamped and closed. On the Aurora, Rourke froze as her own name scrolled across the operator's tablets. The men who had followed her orders seconds earlier now looked at her with wide, uncertain eyes. Betrayal wasn't something soldiers forgave. Kara whispered into the comm, voice soft but cutting. "You told me I was more than the system. You were right. I'm the correction." Then she cut the channel. By the time NATO intercepts stormed the Aurora, the woman they hunted was already gone. No heat signature, no trace. The drone she'd flown self-destructed in silent arcs over the sea, dissolving into static, but her broadcast rippled outward. In underground markets, contracts vanished overnight. Syndicates pulled their listings. Even government agencies shelved black projects. The message was clear. Placing a bounty on the ghost was not an opportunity. It was suicide. 6 weeks later, in a dim cafe in Marrakesh, Kara sat with another laptop, another encrypted file. The contract described a trafficker expanding routes for stolen children. It was urgent, bloody work. She closed the file, her expression unreadable. On the table beside her coffee sat a single card, stamped with a moth's wings in silver ink. Moth's calling card, a reminder the board wasn't cleared yet. Kara slid the card into her pocket, drained her cup, and whispered to no one in particular, "The next move is mine." And somewhere in the shadows, the ghost's legend grew, no longer prey, no longer just a weapon. Now she was the balance itself, unseen and unstoppable, waiting for the world to make its next mistake. And that is how Kara Vale, once marked as prey, turned the entire hunt into a cold signed receipt delivered to the world. The story closes here, but the echoes remain. Can a single woman truly shake the powers that built the system meant to destroy her? Thank you for staying with us Simple Woman Stories. If this story struck a chord with you, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. And now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you see Kara as justice itself, or just another ghost caught in the game of power? Drop your answer in the comments. We read every single one. Don't click away yet. More stories are waiting for you on the end screen. One of them might just surprise you even more than this one.